I'm gonna start the recording, and then I'll, same as usual, it'll be a minute or so. I'm looking for something to talk about. You can actually throw that. I've tried.
Yeah.
So right now we should probably be like above where we're at right now, just taking that high ground, and then this just gives us better visibility and positioning to be working with. Yeah, very nice. A lot of times you're not gonna want to cancel storm arrows if you still have like 4 left. You just hold on to it and then wait for the next person. But if you have like 1 or 2, then that's fine. Yeah.
All right.
Very nice.
Ooh. He's one. Probably shouldn't overextend.
Yeah, so far all looking pretty good. Maybe like the only thing I'd say there was a kind of a micro thing was like we fell back off of those boxes like 3 times when nobody was shooting at us, right? Like not
Yeah.
if no one's shooting at us, then we can just kind of sit there and shoot at people, right?
Yeah. Like I was worried for the Hanzo. I didn't know where he was, so I didn't want to get one shot.
Yeah, so I
Quickly.
mean that's just making sure we're keeping our eyes and ears open and watching for him, and then also, we don't have to be scared if we don't see him shooting at us, right? Very nice.
Oh, I love immortality.
Did we talk about flicking last time?
I think we talked about it a little bit. I don't remember what you said
Yeah,
though.
okay. So yeah, we'll go over that after this game's done then. Just a reminder to make sure we're not holding on to our ultimates. It's just ults that aren't used don't do anything. So. Alright, so far very excellent. Alright, like I think right now we're 12-1 or 12-2 or something like that, right? 12-0, sorry. Never mind. So honestly very excellent at the moment, right? We're doing very good, 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So no super major things as of yet. Okay. Typically, I'd probably recommend saving that for an actual fight because sure, that's a pick, but you also have a grab dragon you can combo that with. Make sure you're paying attention to tab and watching for ult combos, especially grab dragon being one of the most powerful combos in the game. But on top of that, ults that are used in fights typically are going to get more value than in between fights because getting that one stagger kill isn't going to be as important as winning a whole fight. Like there, when you could have gotten, like a 3k with your dragon, probably would have been more value than staggering or one Ryan.
That's not good. Oh, he's one.
Unfortunate. In that situation, yeah, but honestly, possibly just nah. I think he peeked us, so there wasn't really much we could have done there when we were that low.
Yeah. I like dinked him for like I think 180. So if I charge up for a little bit more,
All
so
right.
maybe like 1.5.
So yeah. So here, right. Let's just go over review if we already went over it. If not, let's just talk about flicking, right? So when is flicking necessary, when it is not, right? So flicking is anytime your crosshair travels somewhere very, very fast. Sometimes your crosshair does need to do that, such as if somebody is behind you and you have to whip around it to shoot at them, or if there's a very fast moving target and Tracer blinks behind you. Well, now, right, you can't just slowly turn around. You have to turn around really quickly to get to the Tracer's head, right? Or another example is if you're, aiming down a choke and then all of a sudden someone pops up on the top right corner of your screen. Well, now you have to flick to acquire the target, right? So flicking is going to be necessary in a lot of different situations. Where it is not necessary, though, is when you're already aiming straight at somebody, right? When you're just
Yeah.
flat up aiming at, let's just say an Ana who's standing still and, or AD strafing, right? An Ana just is sitting there and you're looking at her already. Your flicking is going to do nothing more but make your aim more inconsistent, which is something we were just talking about, of how to get your aim to be consistent. Going for very pure flick aim styles is going to rely very heavily on you being energetic and you being in a good mood and you being at the top of your game, right? It's a very think of it as an almost instinctual, right, way to play the game, right? You're playing off of pure instincts versus like well practiced mechanics, right? So flick when it's necessary. Don't just flick for all of your gameplay, right? If
All
that
right.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I know. I overly flick.
Now, for the moment, it is working, but that, again, like I was mentioning, just
Yeah.
means that
Inconsistent.
we're in that one case where it's right now we're just in a good mood and we're awake and we're not we're hitting our shots, right? But when we're not, we're just gonna continue to miss our shots and we're gonna not hit anything because we're just missing all our shots. Yep.
But they don't have no home to that yet. He's one.
Just keep in mind you can peek over the edge and look straight down without actually dropping, right? So there's no reason to drop and put yourself in a dangerous situation when you can just peek the edge and kill him.
All right.
Again, we canceled our Storm Arrow, and I probably would have just kept it up, and that way we just output a bunch of extra damage whenever we have the opportunity to.
All right. So don't try to waste your ammo.
Yep, the only time you'd ever shoot out the rest of your Storm Arrow is if your time's about to run out, or you'd cancel it is if your time's about to run out for it, or if you only have like one arrow left, right? And you know you can't kill anything with it. But other than that, if you still have, if you don't have an opportunity and you still have the full time bank and you have like 4 arrows, then hold on to it because you might find an opportunity to use it soon.
My aim is worse. Oh.
Unfortunate.
Anything I should have done there that I
Well,
didn't?
I mean, I think probably the biggest thing there was missing our shots. I mean, we ended up missing. We hit one of those shots and he's dead, right?
Yeah.
But besides that, we dropped on top of him instead of just keeping the high ground above him, which we could have used to. But whereas keeping the high ground could have just led to us staying alive and not just dying to him.
What is happening? Yeah.
Unfortunate. I know it's hard, but make sure we're trying not to panic when we suddenly get nanoed, right? And that's a very difficult thing that still gets, even me to this day, right? Where I play, I get nanoed, and then all of a sudden, like, my brain adrenaline kicks in, and my brain goes a million miles an hour. But make sure we're trying to make that not the case, as that just leads to you whiffing all your shots and to you not making the best decisions, right? And then just sprinting into to their team and then dying, right? So make sure when we're nanoed, we're trying to work at staying calm, take deep breaths, right? Think it through. Don't immediately just sprint into their team, and then there we kind of missed all of our shots. Particularly, I
Hmm.
would say we were missing our shots, especially like when it was like high stress situations, right? Like when we're in this 1v1 dual soldier and he's like right on top of us, or when we're being nano boosted and we're like running into people, right? Kind of these higher stress situations that seem where we end up missing more shots. So make sure we're working on keeping calm, take deep breaths while you're playing, remind yourself that it's just a video game and that ultimately you're not an Overwatch league, so you're not making money off of this, and it's not, even though you're trying to improve, it's not life or death. It's not nothing that's gonna kill you. So therefore, when you're approaching the game, don't have a mentality of, if I lose, the world's over, right? So put it into perspective, and then that can help with stress of, if it doesn't ultimately really matter, then what's it mean? What's it matter if I lose, right? Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on the platinum. Was that a first time, or was that you've already been there
Well, last season my
last
peak
season
was
too?
diamond, so
Okay. Oh yeah, okay.
so I'm stepping a little bit back there, but
Mhm.
yeah.
All right, so then yeah, you can just go ahead and look to hop back into another game here. But I mean, yeah, you guys pretty much rolled them the whole way through.
Yeah, it was a clean wipe. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So yeah, other ways to help deal with stress is mindset of make sure you're focusing upon, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but when you focus your mindset upon improvement and not upon just I want to win and win, right? Then that can help lead to less in the moment stress, as when you're focusing on improvement, that means that you're not caught up in the win loss, and when you're not concerned about losing, oftentimes you're not going to be as stressed. Pretty much anybody who ever uses an alt account will be able to testify to that. Is like, you'll go and play at, for example, you'll play at your main rank on your main account, and you'll do terribly, and then you'll go and play on your alt account at the same exact rank, and then all of a sudden you play fantastically because there's less stress of you're not feeling like you're gonna mess up your SR by playing, right? So that, in that same sense, right, focusing on improvement takes the focus off of just the win and loss and the SR and puts it on something else, and then therefore you become less stressed when you are losing, which allows you to make better decisions, which allows you to ultimately win a lot more, and
Okay.
allows you to hit better shots.
Yeah, definitely. I tend to get really nervous, especially when someone gets
Mhm.
up close, because the snipers tend to be like more mid to longer
Mhm.
range. So when someone gets up close, like
Yep,
it's kind of stressful. A little bit.
yeah, just remember, you definitely are still able to win those duels up close. I mean, especially Hanzo there, right? Like, you miss like 7 shots on the soldier, right? You hit one of those and he dies there, right? So just concentrate on hitting your shots. Make sure you're not stressed out, because you definitely win that duel. I mean, that's not out of the realm of the possibility, right? In fact, I would say that in that situation, right, if not for the panic, we probably were the heavy favors to win that fight, right? I'd probably say you had a greater chance of winning that fight than the soldier did. After you hit that first shot, after you had the better positioning, yada yada, you had the surprise advantage on him, right? So
Hmm.
in that situation, if not for panic, we pretty much get that, right? So want to make sure we're just letting up on that and working on that, and then that leads to more dual wins.
All right.
Good.
So for I kind of want to work a little bit more on Widowmaker.
Hmm.
So is there any like tips that I should know for her? Other than like positioning, like or is it just like map dependent?
Positioning. Well, if you're thinking about positioning, right? Positioning always depends upon situation. Situation usually being what compositions are being run and what map is being run, right? Map wise, I guess positioning map wise just means like you're on a different map, you're positioning in different spots on the map, right? Right, whoop de doo. But positionings up against different compositions could mean, for example, how are you? If they just think through how are you positioning differently versus another Widow versus a Genji, right? Like, if you're comparing the two, what are the positional differences?
Right.
That was a question. Do you? I'm trying to get you to stimulate your
All right.
brain a little bit here, right? What do you think the differences would be?
So can you just repeat it one more time?
Yeah. So what would the differences be if we're playing up against a double sniper, right? So you as
Mhm.
Widowmaker versus Widowmaker and Hanzo, versus you as Widowmaker playing up against a Genji and a Tracer. What's the difference in how you position?
Okay, so positioning for, I would say for snipers, I would most likely try to take off angles to see if, because like usually I would say the person who shoots first and widow duels like tend to
Mm-hmm.
win. So
Yep.
you try to find like another angle like that you can, get the
Yep.
first shot in so that they're not expecting. For Tracer Genji, I would say try to stay farther back from your team because they tend when they dive, you don't want to be like in the middle because it's going to be a lot harder to hit shots. So definitely
Mm.
like and like positioning for Venom Mine as well. So like for flankers, like for Tracer again, Doomfist,
Mm.
whoever.
Very, very much incorrect.
Oh,
So, when you're up against dive characters and dive compositions, you want to position inside of your team. Now, the exception to this is if you have extreme range, where you know that they would not be able to reach you anytime soon
mhm.
if you position really far away. That's, for example, on like super long range maps like Havana, right, where you have a
Yeah,
super wide,
Junkertown.
yeah, Junkertown, right. Those are the exceptions, but other than that, you want to position with, if you know that they can get to you, want to position within your team, because if you position off on your own, then that means that when they get on top of you, you're dead, right? You can't get team
Mhm.
support. You can't support your team. Let's say they dive your team, well, now you can't help your teammates, right, and shoot at them and pressure them off you. And then, like, especially the big one is just like if Tracer's on top of you, then you're not getting any help. You're not getting healing. You're not getting tanking. Whereas if you were to stand with your team more, you don't have to stand literally on top of them unless you feel you need to, right? But if you were to stick with your team more often, well, now you can get healing, and your tanks can tank for you. You can get a bubble or a defense matrix, right? You can get a
Mhm.
shield. You can walk inside your tanks, and then your tanks can body block for you, right? Or the same thing with just your team in general. So in general, across any character, pretty much any character, positioning with your team up against a dive is going to be more effective because it's harder for a dive to try to kill 6 people than it is for them to kill one person off on their own, right?
All right.
Other than that, one other thing, like I think you pretty much got put the nail on the head with sniper duels. But one other thing I might add in is like to that is up against snipers, you are having a much heavier respect for cover usage, right? Not it's not cover always matters, but it especially matters when you're in a sniper duel because you need to be able to have that split second get around the wall, get out of jail free card. Whereas if you are up against a Tracer and a Genji, right, Tracer and Genji aren't going to be sniping you from across the map in most cases, so therefore you having that split second get around the corner is still important, but not as important, right? So, respect sight lines, take off angles, right? That sort of deal. And then
Mhm.
that's pretty much the difference between those two. And then the same thing just applies when you think through any comp, right? Every comp changes your play style. You're playing differently up against everything. And then maps, like I said, is also going to change your play where you're positioning, but mainly just that what that means is just you're playing on Dorado, you're positioning in different spots than when you're playing on Havana, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think just like two like quick questions. Does it matter for like wrist or arm aiming? Like do you like is it like preference or is there like one that's
Yep. So in general, right? You how it works, right? Is if you sorry, let me figure out where to start with this. So in general, arm aiming is let me just define them real quick. Arm aiming is never just pure arm aiming. You're never going to just only be using your arm. When you arm aim, you are also wrist aiming. But
Yeah.
the specification is that wrist aiming is purely wrist, right? Wrist aiming doesn't involve much arm movement at all. Maybe once in a while, but not very much arm movement. So just to define the two, it's wrist aiming is pure wrist. Arm
Yeah.
aiming is arm and wrist, right? So that when you're arm aiming, the specifications would be you are using your arm when you're doing when you're just walking around normally, when you're doing large movements. But then when you're doing let's say you're just trying to do some precise shots, like maybe you're scoped in on Widowmaker and you're just trying to hit some long range shots. Well, now you're moving over to wrist aiming because you want smaller movements, right? You're not trying to go super far with your movement, right? Whereas wrist aiming, since you have wrist aiming and arm aiming are directly correlated to sensitivity, right? If you have a very high sensitivity, you cannot arm aim, right? You're not going to be able to, if you have a super high sensitivity, to move your entire arm, because then you're just going to do a 360 30 times in a row, right?
Yeah.
And then if you have a really low sensitivity, you're not going to be able to wrist aim, because if you were to purely use your wrist, you're going to, move your wrist and go like 2 inches, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the two of them, like how those interact with each other. Does that make sense? Did you have any more like specific questions within that?
Um. Other than that, my sense is okay, right? I'm doing mostly like wrist aiming. So it didn't look like I was doing too badly. So you can see my screen. So for like
Yeah, so
most of
for context at the moment, you have pretty much exactly double my sensitivity, right? So if I were to do a 360, you would do that double that, whatever. I don't want to do math.
yeah.
So, that's just kind of for reference for where I'm at now. If typically I probably say that yours is like on the slightly higher end, but I think you were saying we talked about that last time. Do you have a smaller mouse pad or wasn't it that like you had a small desk space? Was that
Um.
something or
I have a smaller desk space than
mm,
I had before, but
yeah,
it's actually not too bad. Like it's enough
yeah.
that I can have I would say anything really below 4, I would start having trouble.
Yeah,
But with
within
4.5.
sensitivity, you want to, at a very minimum, you should probably be able to do one full 360 going left to right within your mouse space, or more accurately, what you're looking to go, what that means is you want to be able to do from the middle a 180 left or right, right? So that should be the very minimum of your sensitivity. But then, like I said, yours I wouldn't say is like definitely not too bad. I've seen people who have like probably like 3 times your sensitivity, and then that's 2 times
Oh.
my sensitivity, right? So there's people who have it way higher than that, but maybe still slightly on the higher end of the spectrum. But like maybe I would say yours is more like a medium sensitivity. Um, if I were to put that, kind of categorize where you're at.
All right. Yeah, I just wanted to know because I've been like I'm not sure what since I should be using or if it just doesn't
Yep.
matter.
It the majority of of gaming community agrees that lower sensitivities lead to easier shots, right? That's just for headshots particularly, right? If you want to hit pixel perfect, high sensitivities can be difficult for that to be accurate consistently. So though again there are the exceptions to that rule. So for example, there's like Pine from the Overwatch League, who is a hitscan DPS player who has a very high sensitivity. Watch your health, by the way. Right, make sure
Oh yeah,
requesting healing.
yeah, I
Okay,
didn't do that.
so it can be preference, but I'd probably say most people preference the lower end of the spectrum and find that helpful. Um, so that take that as you may. Like I said, yours isn't too terrible. Maybe just like on the slightly higher end at the moment. All right. Yeah, no reason to use the coach gun if you're not under pressure, right? That doesn't really do anything but look flashy when you're not having anybody really shooting at you. Whereas that coach gun is much more necessary. Alright,
Yeah.
so I noticed a lot of downtime. Make sure we're shooting as often as possible, doing as
Okay.
much damage as possible. Like, we sat some time on the right where we didn't do very much, and then we would, like, kind of shoot, pause, shoot, pause, right? Whereas we just want to be outputting as much damage as possible. It's kind of called actions per minute, of just doing as much as possible with our time.
Okay.
Here, we might want to rotate maybe to, like, closer top left, right? And then that way we're closer to where the fight is happening.
Pushing.
Probably use dynamite just before you back up. Yeah, very nice. Oh, make sure we're keeping our ears open, right? If we're keeping our ears open, then we hear that Hanzo climbs up behind us, and then we react faster to him. Though, after he shot at us, that was good reaction times. It was just, you know, if that Hanzo is up in a diamond rank, then he headshots us while we're standing still right next to him, and then we're dead, right? So,
Yeah.
making sure we're keeping up good audio awareness and paying attention to our environment leads to us not almost dying.
Yeah, that hurt.
Somebody get me some healing. I need healing.
Alright, so, probably say in that situation, yeah, really the biggest thing is just understanding the fact that they have grav there, because if you know they have grav, then you don't stay with your team. The easiest way to counter grav is to just stay split up and not to group up. But then that gets into like ult tracking, so I don't want to get like too complicated because I don't usually go over ult tracking outside of diamond rank, or under diamond.
Oh.
In the situation, request healing might be a time if you were in, like, of course I don't expect you to while you're talking with me, but it might be a time to
Yeah.
communicate with your team or to press, like, group up with me. Just have people look at you. Besides that, what was I even saying? Yeah, back to what I was saying, just make sure if, you know, you haven't seen Zarya grab yet and it's been a couple minutes, just expect grab to be coming and watch for it, and then don't stand on top of your team if you're expecting that. A lot of time left click spam is going to just be wasting of ammo and just lead to lower damage for, it's kind of a less of a bang for your buck, but it does have its uses in certain situations. Alright, nice Bob and good kill on the Genji, but when Bob goes in and boops somebody up in the air, focus the person up in the air, not somebody who's on the ground, right? Because it's very easily trackable when somebody's falling through the air, because you know when they go up, they're coming down, so you just track them as they're coming down. So focus the Moira, who's half HP and is falling, right?
Yeah, the fight's basically over.
Okay, pay attention to team compositions, right? And maybe if I have another character in my hero pool who might be better up against a dive comp, maybe I should be on that character, right? You play Ashe, Widow, Hanzo, McCree, right? Well, out of those four, who's the best up against a dive comp?
McCree.
Right, so that might have been, you know, something to possibly be considering swapping to fights ago, right? request healing, right? Make sure we're not sitting at 100 HP. Right, just to make sure we're paying attention to our health bar, because there's a lot of times where we just don't really notice it. Right, especially it's just a good habit to get into is like when you see you take damage and you have like 10 different sources that tell you you're taking damage, right? Then you glance at it, right?
Mhm.
Get me some healing. Do something.
Yeah, very nice, right? Listening to my advice from earlier is really, really good. And then obviously you can see there how much easier that is to hit than versus a regular shot.
Yeah, definitely. Wait a minute. Full.
Taking damage. Courtesy of the deadlock thing.
Alright, in that situation, you might find higher value out of shooting into a grav where they're all grouped up and they can't move, and you can headshot them very easily versus shooting at a wrecking ball, right? So that gets into both target, I mean, it gets into really just target priority, right? I don't know if last time we talked about it, but just, you know, tanks typically aren't where we want to be spending too much of our time focusing. And then
Okay.
even beyond that, if you, like, it's really the ultimately target priority comes down to both the how easy is a kill to secure and how much value is that kill. So if a support and DPS are going to have a slightly higher value and are going to be incredibly easy to kill because they're in a grav, then focus the people in the grav, right?
Yeah.
Besides that, we held on to Bob for a fight, which just keeping in mind that ults that are used first generally get more value than ults that are used second. So if we were to use Bob earlier in the fight and not hold on to it, well, now it's that means that we end up getting more value out of it because it does more than the other enemy team's ultimates. And then also it might mean that we like if we don't use it and we just hold on to it, well then they might just end up winning the fight before we get a chance to use ours, which kind of felt like that happened in the second to last fight where like they just won it before we got a chance to use Bob, right? So look to
Yeah.
use Bob earlier in the fight, that way he's actually out there doing things and then you can maybe win the fight. And then once again, I'd give you the reminder of McCree just being good against dive, so it might be a good character to go for, especially if you knew they were on dive last round, right? So just make sure we're picking characters. We're not just picking our characters willy-nilly, but we're picking them based off of what situation are they good into, right? Right, now they seem to be on a different composition than last round, so if you did want to swap to Widowmaker after you cap point here, then that's an option, right? Play super aggro at the moment, right? You guys are winning that fight very handily, right? When you're up 3-4 people, you don't want to just be chilling in the back, kind of sitting around, right? Go
Yeah.
really aggressive, push in. I'm not sure if we went too in depth on that last time at all or not, but you know, I think you get the point. Get it aggro when you're winning.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure there were like no flankers or anything, but yeah, definitely. I've seen that 100%. I guess I'll just stay in proof for now.
The power of destruction.
Alright,
Yeah, I want to.
what do you think maybe was the problem there?
Yeah, I do have two targets. Like I probably should have joined back with my team.
Yep. The big thing was we just got over aggressive, right? So you know, just look at that kind of like from a now that you're out of the fight, McCree versus Soldier and Sigma, who wins?
Yeah, probably them.
Right? It's just not a favorable duel. Don't take duels where you know you're at the disadvantage. And if you just saw that they used both like Sigil and Evil, it might be like a situation where you think, they might win that with that big combo, where I might not need my ultimate here if it looks like they got a bunch of ults off well, right? So it's just paying attention against the surroundings to maybe like we don't need High Noon in that situation.
Yeah.
Also, just for note, I'm going to be talking a little bit quieter because randomly my voice started to go. Alright. And fights lost, do you think you make it out?
No.
Alright. So, maybe just slight staggering there. Right? And then because of the slight stagger, we have teammates all the way up there waiting for us.
Yeah. So like basically, as soon as I see like my teammates just dying out, just try to go in and like
No,
die.
if you don't think you can make it out. If you think you can make it out, then try to. If you don't think you can, then let them kill you.
Okay.
Alright. When you're about to cap point, where's the one place the enemy team needs to go?
Cart.
Alright. So where's the most dangerous place for you to be standing?
Probably close to their spawn doors. Yeah.
Right, or on cart, right? If they need to
Yeah.
go to point, then that's where all of them are going to be going, right? And then therefore that's going to be where the most dangerous, right? Let me ask you another question. How is it going to be easier shooting at them when you're sitting in the back, just firing at them like a firing range, just shooting fish in a barrel, or when you're having to do 360s, looking all the way around you, and having cart in the way, and having people in the way, which is going to be easier to shoot at people?
Yeah. Definitely with my team like in the back.
Right, so if you sit behind, just give give it 10, 15 meters sitting away from cart, well then that makes it easier for you to shoot them, one, and two, keeps you much safer, right? So your mid-range character, put some distance.
All right.
Double, triple, quadruple check your mouse.
Five, four, three, two, one. Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
So that's my phone.
30 seconds.
Need a doctor.
10 seconds remaining.
So let's look at target priority slightly again, right? So we talked about value having an impact on target priority, right? So let's take a look at
Yeah.
their team comp. Who on their team comp probably has the highest potential for output and carrying on their team?
Has potential.
Highest carrying potential on their team. If they were to play perfectly, who has the option to do the most?
Probably Roadhog.
I'd probably say Echo is
Yeah.
probably like the most most. It doesn't necessarily always get the most value, but it has the highest potential value, right? If left unchecked, right? Like if nobody looks at Echo, she does a whole heck of a lot, right? In comparison to like if you were to say Roadhog or McCree, if nobody looks at Roadhog or McCree, they're still gonna not be able to do everything because there's shields and stuff in the way. But Echo, if no one looks at Echo, she does a ton, right? Now as well, think on our team who can look at Echo. Well, we just swapped Soldier, but who can effectively take down Echo?
Me or Ana, most likely.
Right, so that therefore also becomes our job. So again, it's a higher value, higher priority on our list to go for Echo because we're one of the only people who can deal with her, and she also has very high potential, carry potential, right? If left unchecked. Whereas in the first fight and a half or so, we just kind of didn't really look at her too much until she had already started shooting at us. Okay. They have got off cart, request healing there, potentially. If we wanted to, we could go for a little bit longer of a wraparound and go top left to get a high noon off, right? Like, if we know we're
Yeah.
going for a big... Sometimes, like, usually... how do I phrase that one? Typically, going for long flanks in the middle of a fight is not the plan, is not the play. If you because it means that you're out of the fight, and in that meantime, your
Yeah.
team could be losing. But if you know that you're going to have a really good chance to get a whole heck of a lot of value, um, off of going on that flank, then the value that you're going to get can outweigh the risk of going on the flank, right? So if, for example, you think that like if you did the wraparound and came from the top left high ground and did a high noon where you can see all of point, catch all the people on cart, probably won't have a lot of people looking at you because it's a surprise and it's really far away, so not a lot of people can shoot at you effectively, right? So that high noon probably has a very high probability of getting success and getting a lot of kills, and then therefore the risk of it might outweigh the time that you're spending out of the fight. But then again, it's a risk versus reward thing, so you got to be careful with it and understand when do I go for it, when do I not. If they're about to cap point, they might not have the time to go for it, right? But if you
Yeah.
have like maybe 5 seconds to start going on that flank, oh, voice crack, you might be able to do that.
Capture objective A.
All right. Yeah, I was trying to like combo with Sig. I wasn't sure when he was gonna use his ult.
Mm-hmm. Okay, they're on double shield, so how are we gonna position to where we can get value through 2 shields?
Try to off angle.
Yep. Whereas that last fight, we were largely spending time just sitting there shooting at shields or having things in the way, right? So we want to make sure when we're positioning ourselves, that we're positioning ourselves on a different angle from our team. So if our whole team went left side, maybe going right side instead might get us around the shields. Oh, that's nasty. Right. Maybe now might be a good time to start popping like ultimate, right? As our team's looking to push and get aggro. Right side instead of left side, right, positioning wise might be a good idea. Because you go and push in position left side, and now you just see there's like 2 shields shoved in your face. Right, so like I would say they're a large part of the reasons why we lost the fight, or our impact is because we couldn't get anything done because there were just shields in our face, right? So going right side rather than left there gets us around the shields much easier, right? Now, swap again, right? Like, that's probably a good idea. Up against double shield, Widowmaker might not be a really good pick, right? So swapping to a different character who maybe might be able to do a little bit more up against double shield is probably a really good idea.
Oh.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, my positioning was kind of off. I was trying to go to the right side. Probably should have went farther back.
Yep, just watching cover usage, make sure we're using that. Okay, if your team is trancing, don't feel like you need to be too scared because you did have a, almost infinite HP at that point, right? So don't feel like you have to play around the corner or play extra aggro when you have that. Okay, when you're up those picks, might want to get a little bit more aggressive when you see Sigma just got 2 kills. So additionally, right, another thing that might make you want to go aggressive is Mercy getting off a res, right? So let's say in that instance, we rolled in, as soon as we saw the kills, we rolled in knowing Mercy's going for res, and we flash her out of res. Well, now that stops her from getting the res and potentially kills Mercy, right? So, pay attention to the fact that they have Mercy, right? Again, team composition dictates your play style. So when you know they have a Mercy, watch dead bodies, pay attention to them, and anticipate the res, and then that gets you extra kills versus negative kills. Okay, little far forwards maybe. Like might position instead of on point, might like prefer either being further left or being further right again, rather than just kind of going up down the main and then being on point out in the open. Besides that, again, a couple times we've gone for flashbang out of range, noting that it's 10 meters. All right. Okay,
Yeah.
so real quick, why don't we do a quick wrap up here? We got like 5 minutes to do that. So I'm streaming if you'd like to take a look, and then yeah, do. So we were on a little bit of a mix. We were on McCree, Ashe, Hanzo, Widow. Oh yeah, so we touched on pretty much everybody. So McCree, right? Flashbang.
Justice
It's a
ain't
10
gonna
meter
dispense
range
itself.
radius, right? Make sure we're looking to land that because we'd go for flashbangs quite a bit at like
Pardon me.
16 meters away, right? So make sure we're understanding that range better. Hanzo, make sure we're not canceling
every
Storm Arrow
death
randomly, right?
comes
We'd go
honor.
like 1 and then we
With
just
honor,
cancel it, right? For no reason.
redemption.
Hold it. It's a very powerful ability and it can melt
Is
people
that
very
the
fast and
best
do a
you
whole
can
heck of a
do?
lot of damage. Sonic Arrow, just use it off cooldown. Pretty much just use it whenever you
See
get
that
it.
which
But
is
besides that, wasn't too much of a problem with that or the other ability.
Double kill.
Ashe, not a
My
big problem at
business,
all. It was just like
my
maybe once or twice where
rules.
we used Coach Gun unnecessarily. And then besides that, let's see what else is there. Widowmaker, honestly, not a whole lot with
One
abilities.
shot,
I don't think we talked a lot on
one
abilities,
kill.
so I think honestly abilities go to like a low priority for you to work on. Not a whole
Yeah.
lot to work on with abilities, right? Ultimates,
Impeccable.
Widowmaker. There's like maybe one time where where I told you to ult, and then that's preferably when I tell you to do something. That's preferably the time in which you would have done it on your own, kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
But besides that, that's not like a big thing. There was Ashe, good placement with Bob,
My
good timing with
business,
Bob. Just make sure we're
my
not like holding on to
rules.
ultimates and use them like early in
My
fights,
crew.
right? Because ults that aren't used don't get any value. McCree, High Noon, where we talked about like that off angling thing with him. Dragon, make sure we're comboing with
With
other
every
ultimates,
death
right? Like with
comes
like
honor.
grab, right? Again, don't use it in between fights because that's not going to be too great for you. You're not going to go get a whole lot of value out of that. And then look to combo, right? And then overall, that one probably goes to like a low to medium priority for you to work on. Mechanics, consistency. Don't randomly flick when you're already aiming straight at somebody because that's just gonna, we're gonna go from aiming at them to aiming off of them, right? So if we're already aiming here, just continue to aim at them, right? Or if we're aiming here, right, continue to aim at them, right? There's no reason for me to be aiming here and then all of a sudden go over there, right? Except for I get the bot kill. Besides that, make sure we're just concentrating on crosshair placement, keep working on just general mechanics. Target priority, think who is the highest value targets and who are the easiest targets. Go, don't focus tanks when they're really hard to kill. Focus Echo when she's your job and when she also is very high value target if left uncontested. Right? Think, focus people who are really easy to kill, such as in grabs, right? Other than that, don't waste your time. Be efficient, right? Actions per minute, right? We didn't go too in depth on that, but just make sure we don't just kind of sit around doing nothing sometimes where we do that. And then overall, that probably went to like a medium priority for you to work on. Positioning, making sure that we are using cover, we're not standing out in the open, making sure we are taking high grounds, don't run into the middle of their team, or don't try to take, this kind of maybe goes into a little bit of mechanics, but don't try to take duels with people where you're at a disadvantage, such as a soldier and a Sigma, right, versus US Hanzo. Besides that, let's see what else is positioning. Making sure they were positioning within our appropriate ranges. Don't sit on cart when you're about to cap. Sit a little bit further back. McCree, I think a couple times as well, we ended up sitting too far away. So just real quick to run through positioning ranges, right? McCree doesn't like to sit far away because you have what you call fall off damage. So we're all the way back here and we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 versus when we're up here we do 3 shots to kill, right? So don't stand far away because that gives you fall off damage, as well as the fact that you're going to be more inaccurate because smaller targets are harder targets to hit, right? On top of that, don't be like right here, right? And then that's about it. I think something around that, right? And then overall, probably say positioning goes to like a medium priority as well. And then finally, we have awareness, right? Pay attention to your health bar. Request healing when you're low. Make sure that you are paying attention to where's my team at, where's the enemy team at, right? Listening to audio cues, right? So we don't let Hanzo sneak up behind us, right? Paying attention to the kill feed and who's winning versus losing. And probably, honestly, at some point we should have gone over how to tell whether or not you're winning or losing a fight, because I think that's something that came up a couple times. But did we talk about that last time?
No, I don't
No,
believe so.
okay. So then we can cover that next time we have a session, but we'll definitely get to that, I think, in the future. If I don't remember, just remind me. But if it's still a problem, it'll obviously show itself. And if it's not a problem, then we don't need to talk about it. But
Yeah, I signed up for, I believe, a 3-month
yeah. Mm-hmm.
subscription. So yeah.
That's why I was mentioning we can do it next time. But in any case, right, we'll go over that at some point. Just pay attention to when you're winning or losing. If you've lost, get out. Let them kill you. Get aggressive when you're winning. Don't just sit around. Make sure we're just paying attention to just off here and there things, right? To pay attention to team compositions as they dictate your playstyle. Press tab frequently. I'd recommend pressing it in between every single fight of the game. Gives you a whole heck of a lot of information from ultimates to character swaps to team compositions, right?
Yep.
And then that's about it. I'll probably say awareness goes maybe like a medium to a medium high around that. So putting that in order real quick. And then survivability was maybe a tiny one, but we didn't really touch on that too much. I don't remember. Was survivability something we touched on last time or at all?
A little bit. Yeah, my positioning was pretty
Yeah.
bad last time.
A
So
little bit, yeah. So sometimes I added it as a category for people. If I didn't add it in as a category for you, then we probably didn't go in depth on it. But in any case, just make sure we're looking to stay alive and whatnot. Again, if we need to go more depth on that next time, we will. And then yeah, I'll put that in order real quick. Make sure you are awareness is number 1. Probably say. But let's just tie positioning mechanics. Those are pretty close, pretty even. And then 3 is going to be your ultimate usage, and then 4 is your ability usage, right? Any questions about anything?
no, I think that's about it.
All right, so let me stop the recording there then.